Hello and welcome to our round recap for the fourth round of this year's Tata Steel tournament. It's the last round before a rest day. There's a rest day after round four. And those are usually quite interesting rounds. People try to maybe get a win in before the rest day. It's always good to go into that off day with a win under your belt. So let's see what happened in this round. We have a couple of good games to check, and I'm going to start with the game Giri with white against Dmitry Andreikin. We're going to jump into the action relatively late in the game here on Giri's 31st move. It's a complicated position, as we see. Both kings are somewhat under pressure. Black is having this pin here on white's king, but also note that black's king is in danger. There's queen h8, and white has a dangerous b-pawn. Giri here played the move b7. White's position here looks very menacing, and in fact, it is a winning position already if you analyze this in a bit more detail. However, it is tricky, and they both didn't have much time on the clock. I want to show you how this game ended. Black now traded on a1. White had to recapture, and rook b6 to have a look at the b pawn. We have to see that white is always also in danger of getting into a perpetual check. If white, for example, now plays a simple queen a8 and now wants to promote, black is going to draw this with this perpetual checking idea. So it's still tricky. It's not a totally easy thing to win this position. Giri finds the right way. He plays h4. This is a strong move. It just gives more space for the king, so you're not sitting in those perpetuals all the time. It costs the b pawn, but that doesn't really matter all that much because white has the stronger attacking possibilities. Yeah, queen f6 was played, and now queen b6. Yeah, this is an absolutely critical position now coming up. He played f3, and Andreikin rook b8. Yeah, it's all about black's king. Black's king is in extreme danger. Compared to the starting position when we joined the action, white's king now is totally safe. There's no perpetual coming, but the question is, can white win with his own attack? And in fact, here he had this opportunity to win. He has 4 moves to make till the time control, and only had roughly 1.5 minutes on the clock. This is not easy to do. The move that he played looks very logical in a way. He played the move rook to d2, attacking this pawn on d6. However, he could have won the game here with the more forceful move e5. e5 is very strong and does win the game. There are a couple of things going on here. The most straightforward line is if black takes this, we have the check on h8 and now take on e5. Now we see how problematic this is. The queen is also looking at this rook, so queen e6 is not a move for black. Yeah, and after something like this, the white rook enters the game decisively. This is a winning attack for white. If black goes here, he will probably get checkmated. I didn't check this, but he will at least win the queen. So it's a complete win. Yeah, the move e5, in fact, would have been decisive, but he didn't find this opportunity, and this would have netted Giri the first win in this event, but played rook d2. And even though white is pressing after this move, it is not a win anymore. Yeah, rook e8 was played, queen h6, king e7. It looks still extremely dangerous, but ultimately rook g8, yeah, we see that black has now ideas on his own. Now white had to get into or accept this kind of simplification where everything gets traded down to a draw. So again, a draw for Giri. Yeah, he's often ridiculed or something by the online community for his large amount of draws, but it's not for lack of trying. Yeah? He sometimes it's close, but he doesn't get the win in. Like in this game, he played a really good game, just had needed this one spot where you needed to end the thing with one tactical precision. The next game I want to check is Van Vele with white against Wesley So. And in this game, Van Vele played a ratty opening, a pretty solid opening. And we got to a position early on that I can actually tell you something about, because I looked at this in some detail for my own opening repertoire. And this is exactly here. I think here, I was a bit surprised that Van Vele here played the move h3. I think it is much more interesting here to play without this move, and maybe consider to play the knight to d4 in this position. The idea is that what white wants to do long term, he wants to play knight c2, b4, and then use those dark squares on this diagonal. It's a very slowish kind of affair, but it's an opening that I have some experience, and it's not all that easy for black to play. I mean, black should equalize, but it is an interesting strategic battle. After h3, black is happy to give up his bishop pair, and now white does not really get this in anymore, this grip on the dark squares. In fact, Van Vele decided to play d4 to cover those two squares before black occupies them. And this now, this game now enters a very slowish maneuvering phase, where Wesley So, slowly but surely got the upper hand. We can fast forward a little bit and see how it progressed. There was some trades, and now Van Vele tried to simplify with d5. Black is still better though, because his bishop here is just the better piece if you think about it on e5 compared to this bishop on h6. This is also why white tries to open this up on the king side. And a little bit later, we come to a critical situation in the ending here. White managed to get the pawn to d7, and instead of b3 here, rook takes d3 followed by rook c1 seems to have been okay. Yeah, this is a matter of precise calculation with the d pawn. For example, if black plays a b6 here, rook c3 is the idea, and this pawn gets picked up. Yeah, this is better than starting with this, after which black has c4. It's not easy at all to calculate this when you are down on the clock. What Van Vele did wasn't as good, and he got into huge trouble, but in the actual game, he still had an opportunity a little bit later, which I was very surprised that he didn't take it. Okay, it is move 39. It's exactly here. Here he took on g6 with check. Yeah, it looks tempting, but it seems to lose right away. Instead, he could have taken on a3, taken this pawn. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure if black can win after this. Yeah, after this, black will capture on a3. White takes on g6 and then attacks the f5 pawn, which now is without any direct pawn cover. And I'm not sure that you can win this with black. The pawn is currently hanging with check, and the danger is, of course, that white is getting to take all the pawns or set up some kind of fortress where he just covers f2 forever and then just sits. I'm not sure that this is a win for black. I would rather say it's a draw. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm close to sure. I mean, this kind of scenario will happen, and I don't see black winning this. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think it's a draw. In the game, he took on g6 immediately, and after king f7, it just doesn't add up anymore. Yeah, you can only go here. And now after a2, this pawn is just too quick. Yeah, it continued for a couple of moves, but after the simple rook takes d4 here, Van Vele resigned. The a pawn will just promote. Yeah, you can stop it for the moment, but the black king will do the final job necessary. So the second win in a row for Wesley So. He had a really lucky win against Rapport in round 3. And yeah, now he got another win in against Sven Veli. That wasn't a lucky win. I mean, it happens that there are missed chances in time trouble. But yeah, So now in a very good position in the tournament with a +2 score. The next game I want to check is the game of the world champion. Magnus Carlsen had white against Wei Yi, the Chinese Wunderkind. Let's see what happened in this game. Carlsen went e4. His main move, I always think that he's great at other moves, but he does well with e4 as well. Okay, anyway, we have e5, and Carlsen goes bishop c4. The reason for this move order is certainly that Wei Yi has successfully played the Petrov defense in recent tournaments, and probably Carlsen did not want to test his ability there. With bishop c4, we now get into something that is close to the Italian, but not just quite, because black does not need to play knight c6. Of course he can, after which the transposition to the Italian is in fact very, very likely, or to be technically correct, 2 knights defense. This is, however, an alternative, and the one that was also played in this game. Black can just play with a c6 and d6 setup, which is not bad at all. What black is basically doing is he sets his position up as in the closed Ruy Lopez or in the closed Italian without the knight being on c6. Quite often you need to reroute this knight anyway because it's not so great. It's a solid setup. And in fact, the whole game can be described as solid, yeah, at the beginning. All those moves here look perfectly normal. Yeah, the white knight is coming around to f1, and now knight d7 played by Wei Yi. This setup is well known also from the Ruy. The g5 square is something that black is after, trying to trade some pieces on this square. And Carlsen finds an interesting setup here to continue in a more complicated way. He plays g4 and knight g3. This is not so uncommon, of course, but you don't see it all that often in this particular timing where black is actually able to put a piece on g5. Normally, white is not allowing this kind of scenario. But Carlsen has, I think, judged that in a proper way. He takes this with the bishop and then plays d4, pushing in the center. So white's main idea is here to grab the space and ask black if this bishop on g6 is actually doing something. It's not doing all that much, certainly. It's looking at a very, very well protected e4 pawn, and white has more space on the king side. The next couple of moves look quite logical, like this. And f3. And first impression, at least my first impression was, is that anything? Yeah, it looked harmless to me. Yeah? White has a little bit of space, but it doesn't look all that decisive. However, if we look a bit more closely, it's difficult to actually see something active for black. Black is basically just sitting, and white, in fact, has some small ideas what he can do. And the main idea is that, again, this bishop is not well placed, and white might play f4, f5, and if that just materializes, the bishop would be lost. So the threat of maybe pushing the f-pawn would actually force some sort of concession from black to play f6, to play h6, make some space for this piece. So this is what Carlsen is after. Queen c1. You need to get rid of the queen, of course, otherwise there's no f4. So this got traded, and now this idea f4, f5 is definitely in the position. What I'm not sure about is the next move by black. Yeah, probably it's right, but after that, white definitely is somewhat better. So I'm not sure if there is an improvement to this move, but I'm sure that after this, white has something. Carlsen plays e5 now, and this nets him a permanent space advantage. I know I said that the bishops or the bishop on g6 might be a problem, but this is a very key element of good chess. You need to always transform one type of advantage to another one and hope that you trade a smaller advantage into a bigger advantage. And here, now this gets traded. The bishops will get traded. And white now has far more space. Pawn on e5, pawn on f4. Those are the pawns that make your position more comfortable. Note that also there is a weakness on d6. This would be brilliant if it would happen. Of course, it's not that easy. Black has a good square himself. He put the knight onto e4. However, the knight on e4, while looking active, is also a bit of a liability. With the knight on e4, Black always has to reckon with the move c4, undermining the important d5 anchor pawn. And this makes the whole thing a little bit tricky for Black to play. In fact, I think, I know it sounds surprising, but the game only lasts a couple of moves from here. Vailly now loses the thread pretty quickly. First of all, b4 was played, making c5 less of an issue. And now he went g5. I think this is probably the move that, brings Black into a real critical state. It seems that f6 is a bit better, even though after this move, white is also enjoying the better game with the strong knight coming to e6. Something like that will be better for white. It's definitely more comfortable for white and easier to play. So it would have been nice for Carlsen anyway, but not as good as in the game after g5. Also that weakness on f5. This whole thing doesn't add up. White plays c4, and after the next move, it's definitely over because Vailly goes c5, and he probably had misevaluated something because knight b5 is not. He cannot have missed this move. I mean, he probably has miscalculate something after this. After knight b5 now, the big issue is that white is just threatening to take on d5, and if you look closely, you see that the black knight on e4 simply has no retreat squares. This is covered, f6 is covered, g3, f2, and so on. It's in the middle of the board, but it has nowhere to go to. The moment white takes on d5, the knight on e4 is almost trapped. So the capture, king takes, cb, cd5, and here Vailly resigned. The knight is just trapped. The only square you can go to would be here, and well, this is a position you can definitely resign against the world champion because he will win with those two pawns without any problem. And it probably doesn't take Carlsen to do that. It's just a completely winning situation. Very surprising how quickly Black fell apart there. I mean, okay, we know that Vailly's main strength is active play, aggressive play. When he's got the initiative, he's fantastically strong. And maybe he does not yet have this toughness in defense, especially against the greatest players like Carlsen in this case. Very good job though by the world champion, getting a quick win basically out of a situation where you think, okay, does he really have something? And in fact, he had a little something, and it turned out to be decisive very, very quickly. The final game I want to check is the game Adiban-Elyanov. A quick word about the other games, by the way. The game Hare Krishna Kayakin was extremely boring, to be honest. It was one of those Italian game affairs where nothing much happened. Aronian Nepomniachtchi was an interesting game out of Benoni by transposition, and Aronian got an interesting looking attack, but somehow, as it sometimes happens, there was a situation where both sides actually had to repeat moves. It was a situation where deviating from that because you want to fight would have led to this side actually being clearly worse. So there was no, sometimes you can risk it, yeah, avoid the perpetual or the repetition and play on, but in this case it wasn't possible for either side. So it was a fair draw, a quick draw, like 20 something moves, but you cannot really blame the players. They tried really hard. In the game report, Wojciech, report had the better position for quite a while, but couldn't quite make a win out of it. It was an interesting game, but we cannot look at everything here. So let's have a look at Adiban Elyanov. This is the game of the current leader of the event. Elyanov is on a +2 score before that game, and he's playing Adiban, who's having a tough time in this event. It's the first super tournament that the still quite young Indian player is participating in. So we had a Queen's Indian defense. Elyanov is a really classical player. He's not playing any super sharp openings. A3, the Petrosian system against the Queen's Indian, is something that is a bit out of fashion. I'm not sure that there is a clear reason for that. The Queen's Indian is pretty solid anyway. I think the main reason why it is not seen all that often is that black is so sound and solid in the Queen's Gambit, and most top players go for that. So the Queen's Indian and the Petrosian system. Yeah, Elyanov plays with bishop b7 and d5. This is the absolute main line now for ages. And we got a fairly normal looking position for this opening. This has been discussed a lot in the early 2000s, yeah, maybe like 10-15 years ago. I remember looking at this a very long time ago. Mostly I've forgotten everything by now, but this was a pretty hotly debated position some years ago. Both sides spent roughly 30 minutes to get there, so it wasn't coming so natural to them. White has a very nice looking bishop on c3, and a little bit, a slight lead here in development if he gets the bishop out in castles. However, black is very solidly positioned as well. What you should not overestimate is the pawn structure. This kind of pawn structure with pawns on a7 and c5 is not all that terrible for black. Black has half open b and d file, and sometimes the potential play on the b file is even more important than the slight weakening of the pawn structure. So, sorry for the h6 square. It's not such a big deal that there is this isolated c pawn. The whole game, at the beginning, nothing much happened. Both sides centralized and traded some pieces. However, what I failed to totally understand is what Adiban did from here, because I think the position is just equal, and I think he tries some things in the coming moves where there's simply nothing to try, and he doesn't really get anywhere instead of just playing like normal moves that trade down. I think doing this is okay. Here white also could have just taken on c6, play rook d1, and probably make an easy draw, which isn't such a bad result, you know. Okay, I think this is still okay, rook d1 and also this, but here he should play a4 and get rid of the bishop, the b5 bishop, something like a4, bishop c6, and go from there, maybe queen e2. This is an equalish position. I was a bit surprised that he played g3, and I didn't quite get what the point of this move is. I'm sure he has one. I mean, he's a very strong player, but I'm not really sure what the point of it is. If you want to make some luft for your king, so the back rank, I'm not sure that g3 is the move of choice. Still, nothing bad happened up to this point, but we will come to something later. Yeah, here with h4, black is still trying around a little bit. It still is equal, but I think white could have had an easier life, yeah, than this position. Yeah, he decided to take on h4 here, yeah, opening up the white king, but it's difficult to allow or to let this pawn live on h4 when there's ideas like h3, for example. Elyanov tried to unbalance the situation here with the c-pawn push, c4, c3, and I think that's a good decision, fighting on. So we got this, and now a5. Black clearly has this outside passer, which is a factor in this position. White is the one to be a bit, white has to be cautious there. He played it correctly at first, getting into this ending. And the critical moment comes on move 40. Exactly here. Because now, exactly on move 40, as it is often is, you have to make the right move. And if not, you're probably lost. So the only move that clearly, I mean, quite clearly draws here is the move c4. Opening up this path for the king to pick up the pawn. Yeah, the most likely continuation is king e7, king e2, and something like that. Of course, yeah, something along these lines is looking better for black, but it seems that if white is absolutely precise, he should be able to draw this position. This was, however, not played by Adiban. I know it looks very bad, but if you drill deeper with a computer, you will see that it's probably a draw. However, it was move 40, and he only had seconds on the clock and played f3, securing the e4 pawn. Elyanov now played this really strongly with f5. This is a very strong move. It attacks e4 and allows the activation of the king. Yeah, from here, I think black is winning and is doing a nice job of converting. Then an interesting moment is the final one, the final position, which is quite nice. Shows a nice motif. The two passes are just too strong, and we see how black is converting this. Because here we can do a little tactical exercise here, if you like. Black to play and win. It's quite static. Black wins with bishop takes c4 check. Because after bishop takes c4, there is a2, and black is promoting. Yeah, you cannot stop the pawn as white takes, black takes here, and then the e pawn is promoting. So that means a win for Elyanov. He's having a really great tournament. Out of 4 games, he's got 3 wins and 1 draw. So he's leading alone after the first part of this event with +3. We have then Wesley So and the world champion Magnus Carlsen with +2 scores, and then some players with a +1 score. Yeah, I think it was a good round. We had 3 wins again. 3 out of 7 is really good. And by the way, we are not covering this event, but if you want to see real bloody chess, yeah, bloodthirsty games, you can also check the Challenger group, yeah, which today did not have a single draw. Also quite nice to check out once in a while. I hope you enjoyed our coverage of the 4th round. Tomorrow is a rest day. The Wednesday is a rest day for both groups, and the tournament continues then on Thursday with the 5th round. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.